Good evening. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight with me, Cynthia Ng. Malaysia hits daily vaccination milestone, but new cases highest in a month. And we look into ensuring the survival of our Malayan Tigers. That's coming up. Malaysia's daily COVID-19 cases soared past 7,000 today, the first time in over a month. The Health Ministry reported 7,654 cases in the past 24 hours and 103 COVID-related deaths. Klang Valley made up a large portion of the new infections. Selangor again topped the list with 3,260 new cases. This is followed by Kuala Lumpur 1,550 and Negeri Sembilan 698. The Health Ministry also reported 21 new COVID-19 clusters in the past 24 hours, with 11 of those related to the workplace. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said the government is optimistic the country's immunization efforts are on track after the country administered over 300,000 vaccine doses yesterday, the highest daily record so far. Muhyiddin, when announcing the National Recovery Plan last month, had set a target to achieve more than 300,000 vaccination doses a day beginning July. According to JKJAV, public health authorities administered 313,761 COVID-19 vaccine doses as of July 5th. Total number of doses administered by midnight yesterday was 9.32 million. JKJAV added the latest figures mean that more than 10% of adults in Malaysia have been vaccinated. Meanwhile, JKJAV said Malaysia will be receiving 14.4 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines in July. This, it said, comprised a total of 6.43 million doses of Pfizer vaccine from Pfizer, as well as the donation from the United States. 1.59 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine, delivery from doses manufactured in Thailand, and donation from Japan. And 6.38 million doses of Sinovac from Pharmaniaga and donation from China. The Sabah government is targeting to vaccinate 60% of its population against COVID-19 by October. Chief Minister Dato' Haji Noor said achieving the target will enable the reopening of more businesses and service sectors, including tourism, that have been badly affected by the pandemic.
He said Sabah needs 600,000 doses of vaccines this month and 1.2 million doses next month to achieve this target, and he hoped the federal government could supply the required amount. According to him, Sabah wants to maintain the vaccination momentum to ensure the population will get vaccinated as soon as possible. Hajiji had earlier received a visit from Malaysian Association of Tour and Travel Agents MATA committee members, led by its president, Dato' KL Tan, at his office at the Sabah State Administration Center here. Regarding MATA's suggestions to restart the tourism industry post-COVID-19, Hajiji said the Sabah government will ensure the tourism industry in Sabah will succeed under a comprehensive tourism recovery plan. Under the Sabah Prihatin Assistance 3.0 program, the government has allocated 2.88 million ringgit to be distributed to tour guides, drivers, mountain guides, porters, and hotel and homestay operators affected by the pandemic.
The Health Ministry will open 2 more COVID-19 low-risk quarantine and treatment centres, PKRCs, in the Klang Valley if positive cases continue to surge. Deputy Health Minister Dr. Noor Azmi Ghazali said the proposed PKRCs will be located at UiTM Dengkil in Selangor and Grand Season Hotel in Kuala Lumpur, which ceased operations last year.
According to him, the UiTM PKRC will be able to house 1,200 beds, which will certainly help to offload the main PKRC. He added that the ministry also dedicated PKRCs for foreigners at private hotels such as Royal Shulan Hotel Kuala Lumpur and a resort in Bangi, and they have to foot the bill. Dr. Noor Azmi said MOH is also increasing the capacity for Hospital Kuala Lumpur, Hospital Tengku Ampuan Rahimah Klang, Hospital Selayang and University Kebangsaan Malaysia Specialist Children's Hospital to cope with the rise of positive cases, especially for categories 4 and 5. On the Public-Private Partnership COVID-19 Industry Immunization Program, PICAS, he said the ministry is expecting more companies to join to ramp up vaccinations, which can reduce the number of cases and severity of infections in view that there are many worksite clusters.
Car wash services licensed by the local authorities, as well as morning markets and farmers markets, are allowed to operate under Phase 2 of the National Recovery Plan. The Housing and Local Government Ministry, KPKT, said that these services did not need to obtain permission to operate through the COVID-19 Intelligent Management System under MITI. Instead, it was sufficient to show a business license issued by the respective local authorities. Perlis, Perak, Kelantan, Terengganu and Pahang have already shifted to Phase 2 of the National Recovery Plan, while Penang will start tomorrow. For vehicle washing services, KPKT said that cleaning work allowed would cover the vehicle's exterior and interior, engine and polishing and waxing, as well as antibacterial elimination and insect repellent services in the vehicle. Borrowers who wish to take up the offer of a 6-month loan moratorium under the government's economic recovery plan Pemulih can begin applying from tomorrow. In a statement, Bank Negara said those affected by the pandemic, whether individuals, micro-businesses or SMEs, do not need to provide supporting documents, as approval will be granted automatically. Borrowers can apply through their respective banks. The repayment assistance is applicable to financing approved before July 1st, and borrowers must not have missed installments by more than 90 days. We'll take a short break. Stay with us. Roaming in wild. The worrying decrease in the species that is near the brink of extinction is a national crisis, according to the World Wildlife Fund, Malaysia. Conservation Director Dr. Henry Chan suggests that one way to reverse this is by forming a national tiger task force chaired by the Prime Minister. The task force would allow decisions on policies, allocation of resources, enforcement and land management focused on tiger conservation to be implemented in Malaysia.
The relevant authorities, because we involve the Prime Minister, so the relevant authorities have to go to the ministry. So the ministry that oversees tiger conservation in Malaysia is the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. They will have come out with a cabinet paper for consideration by the cabinet. And only upon them would the Prime Minister be able to agree to this recommendation. So there's the first part. So the second part is that because the issues to address tiger conservation requires large part, as we mentioned earlier, interagency collaboration, private sector, and so forth, there's a need to ensure that the rakyat actually agrees with all these recommendations.
Meanwhile, the question that lingers is, can the population decline be reversed?
The evidence is that it can be done. First of all, we make reference to the situation in India, Nepal, and Bhutan, where back in the 70s, they faced the same situation of loss of tigers, but they are able to recover, to stabilize the tiger population, and eventually to double the population. So it is possible. So what we can say is that in the activity that we have done in the forest complex of the Buletin Temanggo, as I mentioned earlier, by putting in place sufficient forest rangers to patrol the forest and to remove the snares, we can remove them. And that has resulted in the 99% of the decline. So consequently, this would result in the tiger population being stabilized. The prey will also not be poached, and eventually the tiger's population will be there. But having said that, we have got large tiger habitat throughout Malaysia. We have about 5 million hectares of forests, and these forests must be protected and not be gazetted.
Indonesia is sourcing emergency oxygen for COVID patients from neighboring Singapore. The government is also calling for help from other countries, including China, as it battles to contain the deadliest wave of COVID to hit the country since the pandemic started. Indonesia is expecting around 10,000 concentrators, devices that generate oxygen, from Singapore today. The government has ordered all the nation's oxygen supplies sent to hospitals overflowing with COVID patients, warning Indonesia could face a worst-case scenario where infections skyrocket to 50,000 a day. The crisis has been exacerbated by the highly infectious Delta variant. With hospitals overstretched, some had to turn away patients, forcing desperate families to hunt for oxygen tanks to treat the sick and dying at home. More than a dozen hospitals in Indonesia's second biggest city, Surabaya, said they are already full and not taking any more patients. Hong Kong police said they arrested 9 people in connection with a plot to plant bombs across the city. Of the 9 arrested, 6 are secondary school students. They were detained under the National Security Law for terrorism. Police said the group were attempting to make the explosive triacetone triperoxide, or TATP, in a homemade lab in a hostel, and that they had planned to place the bombs in courts, railways, cross-harbour tunnels and trash bins along the streets. The 9 arrested, aged between 15 and 39, included a high school employee and a university staff member. Police said the group all planned to leave Hong Kong for good and were planning to conduct the sabotage before they left the city. Israel's new government faced its first big defeat in parliament today after failing to renew a controversial law that prevents Palestinians from Gaza and the West Bank who marry Israelis from being granted citizenship rights. It was the first major political test for Prime Minister Naftali Bennett's coalition since it took office in June. Bennett failed to secure a simple majority in Parliament to extend the legislation, due to expire at the end of Tuesday, underscoring his government's fragility. Critics say the legislation passed in 2003 is discriminatory. Thousands of Palestinians previously unable to claim citizenship rights may now be able to do so. The legislation was enacted for 1 year and has been extended on an annual basis, including by former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who now leads the opposition. There are no survivors after a plane carrying 28 people crashed in the far east of Russia today. Initial reports say the plane crashed into a cliff as it was preparing to land in poor visibility conditions. Authorities said the Antonov AN-26 twin-engine turboprop was headed from the regional capital of Kamchatka Krai territory to Palana, a village in the north, when it lost contact with air traffic control. There were 22 passengers and 6 crew on board the plane, built in 1982. The weather in the area was cloudy at the time, according to local meteorology center. Parliament is scheduled to sit for 5 days after shuttered for 6 months. Will we see bipartisan cooperation or open contestation? Tonight on Consider This, we ask our guests about what to expect. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news updates on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and Astro AWANI app. I'm Cynthia Ng. We'll see you again.